All right. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Future of Recruitment. It's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of Infostud. My name is Isidora. I've been with Infostud for over 7 years now, and I work for or with companies to find solutions to identify problems, attract and retain candidates, also known as employer branding. And I will be your host today. Today, as you might have read, we will go over last conducted survey that was done by the network and their partners, Boston Consulting Group. You will hear more about that from our partners, and it seems like this topic is very interesting since there's so many of you. So stay with us, because after this webinar, everyone will get a report and the chance to dive deeper into this data. Now let's move on to our guests, or better call them partners. We have, as the first one, we have the network. The network is a global alliance of more than 60 leading recruitment websites committed to finding the best talent in over 140 countries. It was founded in 2002. The network has become the global leader in online recruitment, serving more than 2,000 global corporations. Now, I know we announced Kate as one of our participants today. Unfortunately, she was unable to attend. So on behalf of the network, we welcome Bojan Divčić. Bojan is originally from Sarajevo. He moved to Belgium 2 years ago for the position in the network. In Sarajevo, he was marketing manager for Moj posla 2. And he has worked in the online recruitment industry for over 5 years, considers himself very fortunate to work in such an exciting industry, and works with some truly amazing and inspirational people worldwide. While in his work, he focuses on the engagement of the network's partners, delivers projects across many countries. He is one of the co-authors of the report, What Job Seekers Wish Employers Knew. Bojan, welcome, and thank you for being with us today on such short notice.
Thank you, Isidora. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for such a lovely introduction, and dobre večer svima.
It's always nice to hear Serbian, even though I'm here. All right, now we move on to our next guest. Boston Consulting Group partners with leaders in business and society to tackle their most important challenges and capture their greatest opportunities. Boston Consulting Group was the pioneer in business strategy when it was founded in 1963. So it's going to be, 60 years this year, right? Yeah. Today, they help clients with a total transformation, inspiring complex change and enabling organizations to grow, building competitive advantage and driving bottom line impact. Uršulja Kovač-Andrejković is an associate director at Boston Consulting Group in Zurich, supporting organizations in preparing their workforce for the future. She is currently researching innovative ways to solve the global skill crisis as an ambassador for at the Boston Consulting Group Henderson Institute. In her work with clients, she focuses on the future of work, strategic workforce planning, HR transformations, and leadership and talent strategies. Wow. And delivers projects across many industries and countries. She is a co-author of the Decoding Global Talent series, analyzing working mobility preferences of hundreds of thousands of employees and job seekers worldwide. Thank you for being here, Uršulja, and welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And I am actually from Hungary, so also kind of neighboring country, from the same region as everyone else. And I'm very happy to be here. I've been working together with the network and different partners since 2017. And to be honest, this is one of the most exciting things I've done in my consulting career. So very happy to share the latest results with all of you.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing that. And last but not least, we have Jelena from Infostud. Infostud, if people who haven't heard about it from abroad, since we have people not only from Serbia today, we have them from everywhere. Infostud has been on the market for the past 20 plus years, and we can proudly say that we remain the leader in fields of recruitment and employer branding. Today, our team counts over 100 professionals whose everyday job is to improve labor market in Serbia. And we have Jelena Bajčetić on behalf of Infostud, who has been part of Infostud for the last 15 years, participating and loving its transformation into the leading solution center for the Serbian labor market, and becoming a synonym for successful employment in Serbia. During all this time, her focus has been both on her team of 45 as sales director and on clients. She strongly advocates the client's best interest is a priority, offering value-based services to meet the market needs. Jelena, welcome and thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Isidora. Hello, everyone. And it's really an honor to be here. And thank you for having me. And I can wait to speak about this very much interesting topic tonight.
All right, good. Now that we've introduced our partners today and our panelists, I'm encouraging everyone in the audience to ask questions, engage with us, as this is a unique opportunity to talk to such experienced experts. Once you've seen all these data, I'm sure you will have some questions, so feel free to ask them. Now let's move on to the interesting part. Bojana, can you tell us some more about this recent survey and what would be your key takeaways?
Yes, Isidora, sure. I will give you a short intro about why we did it and how we did it. We at the network, we are always trying to be up to date on all trends in the recruitment market and to share them with our partners. And since that is our core business, kind of make a sense. That is why we conduct a survey every 2 or 3 years, covering most of our partners and their countries. And I'm proud to say that since, as Orshi mentioned, since 2017, we do those researches together with BCG. That helps us to have relevant data regarding the labor market and the latest trends for our partners and, of course, for their clients. After all, our clients, companies, and hiring managers are the ones who have the most benefits from our surveys, and they need to reach out to our partners to get the right data. It's simple as that. The survey that we will talk about here today was done for the first time, and it's the world's largest survey dedicated to exploring job seekers' recruitment preferences. As I said, it was done with BCG and network partners. Not all of them, but most of them participated. And complete study is based on survey of more than 90,000 people from 160 countries. That's the numbers of countries that network and BCG are covering together. Ursula will talk more about our cooperation in her presentation, so I will not go into much details. Why we did this survey? Well, basically, we realized many surveys are out there and talking about recruitment and hiring and recruitment trends, but we kind of felt that they all failed to ask people the right questions. How do they want to be recruited, and what would they like recruiters to know? So we know that there is a gap in communication between two sides, how employers and candidates connect, how they communicate, what expectations they have on both sides, and in the end, how candidates make the decisions, or how they don't make decision to apply for a job or to take a job. Employers, on the other side, often don't know how what actions will attract or deter potential employees. Sometimes they might even be uncertain about how to find and to recruit them. That's on the other side where we can help with our partners and with our network. But in this survey, we wanted to focus on that and to see, okay, what are those questions and what we can find out from those candidates. Also, we realized and we know that there are a lot of recruiting myths out there, and we wanted to test some of them and to test whether they are just myths or truth. Talking about key takeaways, as I said, I don't want to spoil it without saying too much before we see the presentation. So I will only say that life-work balance and flexibility are important, but please do not forget to pay your employees. I will share some takeaways after the presentation if we have enough time, but I think this time for the intro, this should be enough because Orshi had wonderful slides talking more in detail about this.
I like that punchline. Thank you. Yeah, and the fact that we are all nodding, you know, once you start talking about.
Yeah, and once you see the slides, you'll understand my point.
Yeah. All right. So, and Ursula Soban gave a bit of insight, and since there's so many useful data, we agree that maybe the best way for people to comprehend is to actually see what you guys have done. So you prepared some slides. You're more than welcome to share them with our audience.
Great, thank you for the intro, Bojan. I think it's good to understand the background of this study. Okay, looks like we are seeing it properly.
Yes.
Just give me 1 second. I think the technology in order. One question we are always asked when we are going into this research is this even relevant? The recession is coming. We heard so many companies have laid off so many people, and why we still need to talk about how to recruit people? Wouldn't this situation reverse and be again how it was 10 years ago, when we can just post a job ad and people will apply? And of course, I think we all seen in the summer how much talent shortage was on the mind of global leaders. And just an example of a couple of headlines, especially in the US, companies were quite shocked that suddenly people don't want to do not very great jobs for very little salary. Surprising. But I think also even in Europe, we faced some difficulties, especially in the fields that are at high demand, such as digital, but also in hospitality and a couple other areas. But then is this still the case? So that's a question we asked when we published this study in January. And I think there are two answers to this. One, will talent shortages decrease because of a recession? I think maybe in some areas, but when it comes to Europe, it's not so likely. And the main reason for that is the aging population. If you look up any statistics, the population is actually aging faster than the demand of the economy is growing. So altogether, it's not likely to be, it's unlikely that we find ourselves in a situation where suddenly there is too much talent for the jobs. So we are more likely to run out of talent faster than run out of jobs. And then the second angle is, because there is a recession, should we invest less in people? And I think for that, the answer is very clearly no. There's one interesting quote that we found. Formula One racing champion Ayrton Senna said, "You cannot overtake 15 cars when it's good weather, but you can when it's raining." So basically, companies and people who speed up when everybody slows down are the ones who come out as a winner. Now, of course, when times are difficult, you can't always invest as much, but something we've seen from the previous crisis, from the COVID crisis, I don't know how many of you tried to travel to the European airports this summer, but basically what happened is airlines and the airports, they laid off a lot of people, decreased the salaries, did not let people work flexibly, and suddenly they actually lost way more revenue than how much they saved with all these layoffs. So basically what we are thinking is, even if there is a recession, talent still will be a hot commodity, and leading companies or companies who just want to be competitive actually can't afford not to invest. So the good news is it's still worth talking about the study. And now I'll share you a little bit what were the key insights coming out of it. So as Bojan mentioned, this is part of a series that we've been doing together with the network and the member companies of the network, such as Infostud, looking at how people want to work. And now we are very, very closely, nearly having 1 million responses since 2014. But the specific report today focused on how they want to be recruited. And we look at this a little bit like a game to win for talent. Very often you hear it's a war for talent, but I don't quite like that expression, because that assumes talent is the enemy. I think it's more a game that they are both playing, they want to play together, but you need to find out the rules that makes it actually an enjoyable game for everyone. So 4 things that we are looking at is where to find the talent, what do they want, how can I make an offer that they will accept, and then how to structure the recruitment process in a way that's attractive. And I'll share a couple of thoughts about each of these points. And we structured the report in some what we call myths and truths. And you can see on the left hand what we often hear from our clients. And one myth is we just need to aggressively invest into the existing top talent channels, hire more from the fancy universities, give more money, just be the best in where we are already present. But actually, that probably is not going to make the difference in the future. Why? Because the first thing candidates said, we had an open-ended question in the survey when we asked them, if employers would change one thing about recruitment, what do you wish that to be? The most candidates said, I wish they would look at me as a person and not as a paper, not as a summary of my credentials, not as a tick box exercise, because most people would like to be judged for their potential, their skills, their capabilities. But that means actually, maybe employers could look for talent where they don't think talent is, such as, recruit from different educational backgrounds, different countries. People said they would work globally, remotely for a foreign company. Maybe look for people who come from different professions. Again, in a previous survey, very large % of people said they would reskill for a different job. And actually, we are starting to see examples where companies create a diverse talent strategy, which includes people from very different backgrounds, different universities, different education channels, different minorities, sometimes immigrants, different countries. So essentially, the one who wants to win, they need to think of a bigger talent pool with more interesting sources of talent. And as you can see, there's some of the quotes what people said, what they wish employers would do differently, would be less concerned about ticking all the boxes and look for the person of it. Now, second thing, we had this assumption that after the pandemic, people don't live to work anymore, they work to live. And actually, that's true. So what really came through is most people don't see work as the one and only goal in life. We asked people, what would be an ideal career? And 70%, by far the most, said, I just want a stable job that gives me time for my hobbies and friends and all of that. So yes, they want to work, but they see it as a way to enable their life. And that's a little bit different. Work-life balance is one of the top criteria candidates look for when they receive an offer. And also there are a couple other factors that people tend to prioritize across geographies. Relationships are important, culture is important. And then there is a bit of a difference when it comes to what's the order of these priorities. So for example, as you age, some become more or less important, and also across geographies, there is a bit of difference. So while overall, people start looking at work a little bit differently, that doesn't mean they don't want to work. That just means that a good employer needs to find out what motivates different people and customize the offer to them. And, maybe in some cases it's the money, but in most cases, it's going to be something about culture and environment. I'm not going to details, but here you can see the what matters to people changes quite a bit. So while the very young people still care a lot about learning and career development, you can see on the left is light blue, then that actually goes down and even disappears for the older populations. It's not such great news, actually. Then financial compensation is very important in middle career when you have a family, you want to progress. A little bit less important as people age. But also things like meaningful and impactful work is what motivates the older workers the most, and a bit less those who have families to support and career to build. So this is something interesting, and for an employer, it's important to understand, so you know what to offer to the different groups of people. We also ask people how they want to work, and we are quite sure that the hybrid model is still here to stay. So it's more than half of people said, I would like some kind of hybrid model, but also a good 35% actually are fine to go to the office. So I think after the pandemic, when we did the same survey, it was nearly 80% of people who wanted some kind of hybrid model, and this went back a little bit. So let's say that the honeymoon is over, but people still the arrangement of working in a hybrid manner. What's interesting though is, we hear a lot about people don't want to work for companies anymore. They just want to be all gig workers and Uber drivers and self-employed. That's not actually true. So people are still most interested to work for a large company or an SME. And then comes government, and doing a startup or being self-employed is still much fewer people who would like to do that. And also when it comes to do you want to work part-time or full-time, most people still want to work full-time. So it looks like flexibility is important, but if people have the flexibility to work a couple of days from home, they don't mind working 5 days. Then another myth, do candidates want to see the money on the table upfront? Yes, they do. I think that came out 100% from the survey. The first thing candidates look at in a job ad is whether the salary is there. The first deal breaker is the salary. And also a large amount of respondents expect that the salary is up for negotiation. So that was another myth that, you know, many employers think once we send the offer, we just wait. But actually most candidates are waiting as well and seeing, will you reach out again and are you open to negotiate? So that's a very different way of looking at the game. Something interesting is it's not equally true for all job roles. So what you can see in this slightly complicated graph is we ask respondents that's on the vertical axis, do you think in a negotiation situation, and what do you think, who has the upper hand, you or the employer? Mm-hmm. Here you can see the percentage of people who said, I have it. So it's really large. It's like on average 65, 70% of people think I have the advantage when I negotiate for a job. And on the horizontal axis, what you can see is how often are you approached with job offers. And this is the people who are approached multiple times a year. And again, this is very high. It's 75 on average, but some roles higher. But then what's funny is basically this slide compares how attractive I think I am and how attractive I actually am. And then you get kind of these funny groups of people, like on a dating market. You have those that are sexy and they know it, the digital, tech, engineering, they get a lot of offers, they know it, they will negotiate hard. But then you get those who are kind of playing hard to get, like finance or legal, who think they have a very strong negotiation position, but they get comparably less offers. And then we have also those who are actually quite attractive, but they maybe don't have the confidence yet to negotiate, but it could be only a matter of time until they also change their behaviors, like manual workers, hospitality workers, researchers. So it's important to know what kind of people you are trying to hire and kind of what you can expect. With the sexy and know it category, it's quite difficult, and one really needs to go all out and be ready to negotiate personalized offers and everything, while with some others, maybe that's not necessary. And now a couple more thoughts about the recruiting process. So that's on the how to recruit people. Quite often we hear, oh, we just need to offer a really good offer, and then it doesn't matter if the recruiting process is not great. That's actually not true. More than half of the respondents said, even if I have an attractive job offer, I will refuse it if I had a negative experience during the recruitment process. No, if they ghosted me, there was a mix-up, they asked me insensitive questions, I had a bad chemistry with an interviewer, I will reject it. So actually the recruitment process is more important than we think. It's really a two-way thing. It's not only the employer judging the employee, but the employee is very much judging you. And it comes back also to a similar thought, whether cutting-edge digital solutions during recruitment, are they always attractive? And I would say not always. So what we found is respondents, they did say they want a smooth, fast process. And if you have digital solutions that allow that, that's great. But what they don't want is the digital solutions replacing personal contact. So, actually we thought that some of the younger population or the digital talent who basically just live online during the pandemic, they would even prefer not to talk to a real person and just send, a video or talk to an AI or do an online test. But actually that's not true. Even the young people, even those in digital fields, the first thing they would like is to talk in person or on a video with their recruiting manager or their recruiter. So what's the takeaway? One can use digital processes, digital tools. It can be helpful, but one needs to be a bit selective. And the way we look at it is you need to nearly think of recruitment as a journey it's a journey for the candidate, it's a journey for the recruiter, it's a journey for the hiring manager, the team leader. And basically throughout the journey, they have positive and negative experiences. And thinking about what digital tools to use should be making these experiences better. And if it makes the recruiters work easier, but the candidates hate it, then maybe let's not go for that at that point. So one needs to keep quite a lot in mind when deciding what digital tools to use. Mm-hmm. So that was a very, very quick summary, and I'm really happy to go more into details. But at the end, I think the only message I have is the talent game has really changed the last 1-2 years. It was a surprise after the pandemic. A lot of employers, a lot of our clients were really caught unprepared, unaware, and still, I think, struggle a little bit to get back in the game and develop the new winning moves. And I think why this survey, we found it super interesting because it really proved or disproved some of the biases we even had when designing the survey. And so looking through this will give you a little bit more insight into how talent wants to play. A huge thanks and happy to discuss more of the details.
Thank you, Arsha. This is really, really interesting. And of course, we will hear from Jelena how do things look in Serbia at the moment. I have written down a few things. First of all, I love the term sexy and know it in terms of recruitment. This is really good. And it really describes that group that is very aware of the fact that they are very, very wanted. For me, I have a question for you at the moment. It's just based on, maybe your experience, your opinion, nonetheless. So why do you think this switch of the group of people who were up to 80% that said they wanted to work hybrid changed to 53, if I'm not mistaken? Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I think we've done a couple of studies on, does hybrid work actually work? And I think what we found is yes, but only if it's done well. And there were quite a few employers during the pandemic who allowed people to work remotely or even forced them to work remotely because they didn't have a choice, but they didn't really prepare for it. And I think in those cases, people who had a bad experience with going remote, they probably now changed their mind the last 1-2 years. Just one example of working remotely doesn't mean that you should have the same amount of meetings now just being done on Zoom, because that is going to kill everybody, the motivation, the morale. People will be playing Minesweeper and so on. What it should mean is you need to adjust your working mechanisms, and maybe you do chat, you collaborate on a Google Doc, you use a whiteboard. So it's not only taking your physical work and just putting it online. That's not enough. And I think that's probably happened in many cases, and people who experience that now saying, well, then I just rather go to the office.
Well, that makes sense, I think, yeah. There was one question, it kind of goes with this survey, so I would like to ask it now, although we did receive a couple of questions from our audience when they were applying, so we will go over them, of course, and then everyone who has a question in the meantime. But there was a question about how geographically diverse is the sample of respondents. If I'm not mistaken, it's very diverse, but yeah, you go ahead.
Yes, great question. So these 90,000 respondents, they come from, I think, 150 countries. We usually get very, very good coverage thanks to the network of the network. It's quite well represented. So most of the respondents are coming from the G20 countries or the countries with the largest population. But even from smaller markets, we usually get 1,000-2,000. I think the Serbian sample is also in the thousands. So actually, it's very diverse. We do have quite a lot of developing markets as well. So I think the survey gives a little bit different view than what you usually see in surveys where it's done in the US, Germany, and the UK. So it's definitely much more diverse than that.
Yeah, thank you. If the person who asked the question has anything else to ask, feel free. I hope this answers at the moment. The other two things that I kind of caught up from your presentation, and again, this is my opinion, is do you think that the work-life balance becomes, in the graphic where work-life balance becomes more important to older groups, let's call them that, does that correlate with the fact that they are not that keen into, or with the entrepreneurs and how they would like to start their own businesses? From my point of view, people appreciate work-life balance, and when you're entrepreneur, there's none of that basically. So maybe that's why there's that. I don't know. This was interesting for me.
Yes, that's actually true. So when we did different cuts, of course, people who want to work at a startup, they value less the work-life balance. They are more into career development, impactful work, doing different things. So I think there's definitely kind of a segmentation happening there. Also, if you would look at the elderly workers, they may care about the impact. They often care about relationship with their superiors, relationship with their colleagues. And then they care a bit less about, let's say, the salary and the actual work. So I would say it's actually there are so many variants in this game that the only way to look at this, and that's what I recommend my clients, is to think of the most common personas you want to hire. Like really imagine, okay, I'm hiring, I don't know, Jane, a young mother coming back to work after having 3 kids. She's 35. What would Jane want? And then try to adjust the process to that. Now, of course, you cannot have hundreds of these personas. Usually we try to work with 5 or 6, but you could have the young digital worker, the elderly retiring person, the returning mother, the mid-career expert that we steal from the competition. So it's good to really imagine who are we doing the processes and the offer for, and then try to customize to these like 5, 6 different personas. And it will be a mix of different things. How they want to work, where they want to work, what matters to them, how much to pay. This will all be different for the different personas.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense as well. It will be interesting to see how things unfold in the future, since it has changed. And that was one of my takeaways from your presentation as well. The tables have turned so much that, things can change in a couple of years drastically. So yeah, it will be fun to watch and participate, right? There is a question for you. What do you think? I think this topic seems to be very interesting. What do you think about the impact of IT crisis currently unfolding? What do you think this impact will be to the regional hiring market? I mean, I think this is a topic for an entire webinar, but yeah, let's
that is a tricky one for sure. And please, Yelena, jump in as well. I think you know the regional market much better than me. I think what I've seen globally is a lot of this IT crisis is coming from the US. It's a little bit less pronounced in the European markets, especially in the higher regulated markets. Like in Germany, you can't just fire people, like you just literally can't. So I think similarly to the Great Resignation, which caused a huge panic in the US, I think we will feel some of this trend in Europe, but it will be not as pronounced. So with all that said, I would still think there is going to be a digital talent shortage and an IT talent shortage. And as such, Central Eastern Europe is always a great source of digital and IT talent. And in addition to that, I think more and more employers are now realizing that you can actually employ people remotely from different markets, especially in digital fields. So I think that will also play a little bit into this whole situation. It's very hard to predict what will happen exactly, but I would say it's still going to be a rather heated market in IT. I don't think there's going to be a situation in which people would say, well, okay, let's stop hire the software developers.
Yeah, I would also like to second this, what she said. It's based on data that we have and communication we have with our partners worldwide, and especially in Europe. I completely agree with Orshi that that is not something that could be expected easily to happen in Europe. Yeah, we know some cases in UK, but still those people manage to find a job very easily, and those people, they might only be a little bit game changer on the work balance area, because those people now, if they are fired, they want to work full remotely or stuff like that. But I don't see also a major impact on the digital market based on this.
Yeah, from what we see in Serbia at the moment, what I would think is that companies are mostly being cautious rather than, making any big cuts. So and that's reasonable, right? You have this crisis worldwide, so I think that's reasonable. But in the near future, I cannot foresee any, like you said, both of you, any shortage or any big cuts. Yeah, I mean, it's digital era. Yeah, so
I mean, there is a global shortage, but it wouldn't be it would be unfair to say it will be especially in digital or IT industry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Thank you. All right. Again, if people want to ask any questions, feel free. Now we will move on to Serbia, and Jelena will share insights about how does the labor market look at the moment. And just give me 1 second, since we had some. All right, here it is. You will tell me if everything you can see. I'm not. I
Me
can't.
and Archie
Okay.
having the same thought at the beginning.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it okay? Okay. Is it now okay?
Yeah. It's okay.
All right, Jelena, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Isidora. And I was listening very carefully to Archie's presentation. As always, I enjoy listening to her. And when she shared her thoughts and numbers about the survey, I was thinking about the labor market in Serbia, and there is actually no big difference in comparison with the global situation. So yes, they are talking about possible recession, and they are still present. But despite the possible recession, the talent market is still very hot, very dynamic, very active, especially in high demand fields. But we can ask ourselves, what are actually high demand fields? Because before we had like deficit mainly in the IT sector, but now it is present in almost all fields of the industry, such as sales jobs, tourism jobs, transport, logistics, blue collar positions, and it's just everywhere. And there are some major changes in the market in the previous time that actually led to this. And I would like to share some thoughts about them. So first of all, we had actually the number of job vacancies had been rapidly increasing in the past 2 years. And it is up to candidate actually to make a smart move and choose the right employer. Then we all faced that Corona brings us the new working models, as Archie mentioned, the remote and hybrid, and they are definitely here to stay. Then the market has definitely opened up. So today we cannot talk only about Serbian market, but actually there is global market, and many of us can just find a job on any continent and work from home. And one part of the Serbian workforce actually has left the country, and the other part is really employed. So before, like around 75% of our website visitors were unemployed, and today 75% of them are employed and would consider moving to the other job position only if they receive a better job offer.
Jelena, just pardon, just let me know once I should change slides.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
We are here. We are still here. Don't.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And so all of this actually led to a change, and Archie was mentioning change in the behavior, change in the expectations, both of the candidates and employers on the labor market. And we can actually say that the labor market today is more than ever candidate-centered and human-centered. And this is the question, this is the quote that I put here, and Archie did it the same. It's interesting. So people don't live to work anymore, they work to live. And I think that is the game changer, and I'm really looking forward to this change. So being in the part of this industry for so long, I was personally very curious to find out where Serbia stands on the global market. And now I would like to share some key insights and some thoughts about the report that was conducted, and that you hear more data from Bojan. So you can now switch to the next slide. And this is something about sample size. I will just take a quick look and emphasize what is important. So over 50% of respondents are age group between 21 and 40, and around 60% of them are employed part-time and full-time, and they're working in various industries such as IT, retail, tourism, industrial goods, etc. So that is about the sample. And we can move on to the next slide. Yes. So the headline is very interesting and very true. The talent market is heated and job seekers know it. So let's take a look at the data. Here we are talking about the reasons for actively looking or not looking for a new job position. And it's very interesting to see that 23 of the respondents in Serbia are actually actively looking for a new job, out of which the biggest reason for that is that companies do not offer them enough career development possibilities or interesting positions, and the other one is salary. So I think that companies here could recognize the chance to think about the career opportunities in the companies that they're providing to their employees, and they can for sure greatly influence the retention of employees by taking care of their career development. But the next actually was really like shocking for me, the next data, and that is the 50% of respondents in the survey stated that they are not currently looking actively for a job, but if a better job offer comes, they will possibly receive it. So actually, that means that the half of our employees or half of your employees are actually available on the labor market. And when we talk about the reasons, how could we raise their interest? Higher salary is the first one, and then career development, and then more interesting or challenging position. So we can see these people actually as job seekers, but passive ones, but they could be activated actually because they are in mood to receive offers if they recognize the employer as a good place for work. And what was interesting for me too on this slide was that only 5% of the people are not looking for a new job, but they plan to leave their current employer. And one of the biggest reasons for that is to start their own business. So that leads us to the next slide. And please, you can move on. Thank you. So the question for the candidates was, how do you imagine your ideal career path? And there are two actually ideal career paths that I want to share some thoughts about. That is the first one, and it is interesting that it is almost the same for Serbia and for global market, is I would like a stable job with good work-life balance, and people want to have time to see for family, friends, and hobbies. And the second one, which was a little bit surprising, is for Serbia. I would like to build my own successful business. So about this first one, stable job, and this was not so much surprise for me, because actually we are doing in Serbia, Infostud is doing regular research of the attractiveness of the employers. And we did it last year, and on the first place for labor market and Serbian people was financially stable business. So it's something like that candidates will always prefer a stable company that will give them a chance to grow, a chance to develop their skills, which has good business results, and etc. And what is else my impression is the Bojan mentioned work-life balance. So I think it's actually a buzzword in the labor market after pandemic. Because actually, I think that we all had some thoughts in the corona, and it led to some changes in the behavior in the working time after the pandemic period. And it is actually going on that a person wants to be equally fulfilled both in their personal and professional life. So I matter as a person. That is the message that I think everybody is trying to, address. And Corona time and the new working models such as remote and hybrid definitely made the changes in our habits and schedules and boundaries between work and home. And our constant 24/7 access to work, to technology actually, and to workplace actually via that technology definitely make it more than ever the importance of making the work and life balance. And I think that the work-life balance must be understood correctly. I think that Bojan and Orshi also said it. So it's not like we are working all the time and, you know, we don't have finishing hours. It's actually, I think for me personally, that means the absence of the systematic overtime in the company. So company actually shows that it supports that its employee should have time and opportunity to grow in the other fields of the life and to have time for them. And we must understand that people, that doesn't that we have to have trust, and that doesn't mean that I don't want to work. I want to work, but I want to be fulfilled, and then I will come to the work maybe more productive, more with more energy, more ideas and stuff like that. And I would like to mention that I'm extremely proud about the results of the internal research in the Infostud. We did it recently, and it shows that 88% of the employees believe that the company provides them with good balance between work and personal life, and we work hard and do, you know, and we and we achieve a lot. So I think you can, you know, have both things. And I think when candidates say that, it's really important to provide them with that. And the other one about making I would like to build my own successful business. So that is like the second ideal career path for people in Serbia, according to this survey. Was very interesting for me because it reflects actually what is going on in the market in the, for example, last 3 or 4 years. Because before it was not like that, it was not so popular. And I think it is changing because of the different reasons. First of all, younger generations are coming to the market, and I think that they are a little bit braver, I must say, and ready to take more risks than the older ones. And I think that they know they can earn money if they have their own business. They have confidence and they have no tolerance. So, for example, if they're in some company and they are not satisfied, I think they are brave enough to just say, okay, I will start my own business, or I will do something else. And I think that is one reason. The other reason is that I was just thinking about how many actually people on the network in Serbia, social networks, that is not network one, not the network, actually are promoting starting their own businesses. And we can see that the social network are actually promoting it. They're promoting people who are successful in doing their own business. And I think that you today you can actually share your knowledge, ask questions, share practices and everything. So it actually became really popular. And I was talking recently to one of our business partners, and he told me that he's actually very much initiating this entrepreneurship culture in the Serbia. And he told me that more and more universities are calling him to be a lecturer on the topic of how to start my own business. So students are really, really interested in these kind of topics, and that is actually going on the market, and that is the why this is maybe second ranked on the ideal career path for Serbian people. So we can go on to see what are the top deal breakers and looking for a new job. And this was interesting for me also because it is almost the same as in Serbia as on global market. So definitely the first top deal breaker in how to attract talent is financial compensation. Then the other one is work-life balance, and then the other one is appreciation for your work. So some thoughts about this. Bojan said that's nice, work-life balance, everything, but we can see that people want financial compensation, and it's the same in all the countries. Actually, this was a little bit surprise for me that salary came to the first place, because we conducted researches too, and before the salary was on the fourth or fifth place, right after, for example, friendly working environment, work and life balance, leadership, and stuff like that. So stuff like that are regarding company culture and company values. But I think that last year was really uncertain on all fields. So we have like a geopolitical situation that is uncertain, war in Ukraine. We had inflationary pressures in the country through all the year. And I think that is the reason that financial security is important to our candidates, and it returns salary to the first place. Work and life balance, I mentioned it before, so I won't be talking about this and why we heard why this reason is important. And appreciation for your work. This is really great because I think that person who feels appreciated will always do much more than it is expected. And I don't know for three of you, but when I was reading the global report and the report for Serbia, there were like one word that was always coming to me, and that is the importance of the good leadership. So if we want we as team leaders or managers or hiring managers, we know how much showing appreciation to your team matters actually to them, and that is the way that you can increase morale in the team or maybe improve employee retention rates. So I think it doesn't have to be so complicated. You can just, you know, tell your people from the heart that you appreciate their work, their results, what are they doing and contributing, and I think this is really important deal breaker. So it's great to see it here. Okay, and now you can move on to the one that was this one is actually different. So we came to something that is different from for Serbia and global. So we have like vice versa numbers for the, as you see, hybrid and fully on site. So for 51 respondents in Serbia, they prefer working from the office, and 13, and that is, you see, globally 35, and 39 of the respondents prefer a hybrid form of work, and it is 54 for globally, and okay, 10% of them prefer fully remote work. And I was thinking about this slide and why it is like that. And I remember after a lockdown period and my team, we were like all agreed to come back to the offices. We were looking forward to it. And I think everybody in after pandemic time was, okay, I want to see people face to face. And actually, I am a huge fan of, personally, I prefer to work from office, Isidora, you know that, because I think it brings a huge benefits to the employee and to the company. But also, I think that is wonderful to have the possibility to stay at home if it suits to employee for some reason. So I think that is important for the employees to have an option of the hybrid work. And I think that in years that are to come, actually, it will be more and more popular.
Next one.
Okay, yeah. And it is something about recruitment process. I have a few thoughts to share. So first of all, like Arshi said, the recruitment process does matter. It is very, very much important, all the steps in the recruitment journey. And that is the way that employer can stand out from the crowd, doing something interesting and different from the others. But I suggest that it be honest, because you can see this was interesting for me. What makes an employer stand out? And so the top 3 reasons are honest conversations, not trying to oversell, then showing interest in me as a person, and immediate feedback after a selection. So my suggestion is that we should all be honest in the recruitment process. So yes, we all want to attract the talent, and there is high demand for talents. And we like when we see someone who is good, we want to grab him for us. But the right way is actually to be honest, to say that this is good in our company, this can be better. So please listen to the candidates and what they say, and then showing interest in me as a person, like the second one. I think that people want to be treated as people, not as numbers. So they want, you know, that you hear them, that you listen to them, and that you give them immediate feedback. So they are not afraid of the feedback, they just want to have it. And that was like something that I want to emphasize. And on the other slide, please, you can move on. I think I just have this one more to left. Yeah. But it's so much interesting. These data are so great, and they're actually telling us what we should do. So I want to tell about what would make you refuse a good offer. So listen to this and look at this. 44 of respondents will actually refuse otherwise good offer if they have a negative experience during the recruitment process. So I think it tells us all. So candidates just want fair and completely good experience during the recruitment process. And I think that is something that is, for me, one more takeaway from all this report. So I think that's it from me. I actually read the report, and as I said, share the most interesting things for me, but you will have it in all, and you can read all other stuff and find out about more things that you can use in recruiting and attracting candidates.
Which we highly recommend, right?
Yes.
Just give me a second to stop sharing for a moment. All right, can anyone see me? Okay, let me just find where, do we have any? All right, I would like to ask people in the audience if they have any questions. What do you think about these numbers? Do you think they're accurate representation of the labor market in Serbia, or if your HQ is some elsewhere? Globally as well. What I wanted to share is an interesting thing that we can see when we are conducting the survey of like most attractive employers in Serbia, regarding what you were sharing, Jelena, about the importance of stability in workplace, is that stability as a term was not as attractive a couple of years ago. It only peaked when the pandemic hit, which kind of makes a lot of sense if you ask me, because that was the time when people did not care as much about other things. They just want to keep their jobs and provide for their families. But I do believe that will as well kind of decrease as the situation gets better throughout years, and other things will become more and more important again. So yeah, that was interesting to see. All right. Do we have any questions? Feel free to ask. Okay, there's one. Okay, let me just read it. So very interesting data for both global and Serbia. Thanks to everyone. I have a question for all participants. If you had the opportunity to give only one piece of advice to companies on the topic of how to reach the top 5% of their talent in their industry, what would that advice be? I think this is something that people pay to hear. So yeah, we'll do that later.
Just have a plan.
So to reach the top 5%, wow. Okay.
Great question. Let me go first, because then it's easier for me.
Yeah, I like that.
Then we will copy you.
The one thing I would say is pick your battles. If you want to get the 5% of talent, that you need to be better than others, and you need to be the 5% in something you are offering, but it doesn't have to be money. What's important is you have to cultivate a really sharp brand of what you are the best at as an employer. You are the fastest growing, you are the coolest, you have the nicest office, you are, I don't know, in the best location where easy to commute to, you don't care where people work from, you have a really cool culture, you are super sporty, you let people run marathons, etc. Doesn't really matter, but you need to be the best in something, and then you need to target those people that care about that thing. And I think it's especially important if you are not Google or Facebook or whatnot. You cannot pay the salaries that Google can. And that's the situation where you need to think of something else. How do you differentiate? That would be my one advice. Pick the battles, and what you pick, be very good at it.
Well, I like that. Yeah, I think that could be a good one.
We shouldn't let you go first because you take the best one.
You guys can just say, yeah,
make it harder for the
likewise.
rest of us. Yeah. Because my first thought was about exactly the same.
Mine too.
I would maybe put it in different words, but point is the same. But before I say it, I just want to say to the person who asked this question, if you find someone who can really precisely answer to this question, that person probably would be a millionaire or should be a millionaire with advice in this industry. You need to work on your company culture, and to make sure to whatever you are selling, or she said, whatever you find that you are best at, make sure that you really deliver it once you hire the person. So that's something that, as I said, or she took the best because she was first. But if I can add anything on top of that, it would be that if you're really selling something, that you are best in something, and if you are hiring, and if you are like selling anything, promising anything during the process, make sure to deliver it after it.
That's actually a really good point. Is candidates really looking for honesty, for credibility? So it's not enough to brand something, but you really need to then do it. That word goes around really fast. So I think it's a good point, Bojan, that don't over focus also on the beginning of the process and forget about the actual culture. Yeah, super good point.
Yeah, because employer branding is not just an advertisement. It has to be true, and the company should, take order of their internal processes, vision, mission, and everything. So I will add, do you know your vision? Do you know your mission? Do you know what is the purpose? So the purpose is actually wanting that the top talents are looking. And like Arshi mentioned, you should actually be aware of your strengths. So you should actually do maybe some SWOT, SWOT, about yourself and about your company. And then you should focus on your strengths. And then you should, make them visible for candidates, but please be honest in doing that.
Yeah, it's gonna get you otherwise.
Definitely.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about the importance of the recruitment process itself. So it was really convenient for us. I don't know if Selena Krstić is here, but she asked a question prior to, once she was applying to this webinar. So what is in top priority for the future employees during the process of recruitment?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
So we were talking about how this the recruitment process itself, it's very important, but there was a question of what is the most important part of the process. So if anyone wants to talk about that, what do you think? Okay, we heard that AI cannot replace human in the future, but something else that crosses your mind that would be the most important part.
I think from reading through what people were saying in the survey, and then maybe just add this one thing here. Most people, they don't necessarily ask that the process be like super modern or not even that it's fast, but what they ask for is just transparent, like it explained to me at one point what is the process, and then that actually is the process, and then the company doesn't disappear halfway through. I think it's just credibility, transparency, and kind of basically the company doing what they said will happen. So if they said we'll let you know in 2 weeks, they let you know in 2 weeks. I think that's a very basic expectation, but it seems like a lot of employers don't meet it.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's actually very simple, and companies sometimes tend to, as some would say, over communicate, overshare, make it more complicated than it really is. So if it is what it is, just name it by the right term. So yeah, so that, yeah, transparency could be one. I could agree as well. I have a question for all of you. So what do you think, let's ask Yana, how does Infostud adapt to these changes that are big switches in labor markets? I mean, Infostud has been leader, so and I don't think it would have been here if it wasn't for, you know, this like paying attention to what candidates say, what the clients say, what companies say, what are the global trends. So what do we do when we see this upcoming trend that was not maybe in our agenda?
Yeah.
How do we adapt?
We do many things, but when I was listening to all of you, actually one thought came to me, that is that changes are here to stay. So I think that it's not about the change so much anymore. I mean, we must be aware of them, but actually we must be very good at adapting to the changes. So that is the really, really good question, Isidora, because I think that we really have to upskill, can we say upskill, our ability to adapt. That is the first thing. And because I've been in this industry for 15 years, oh my God, 15 years, and there are changes all the time. So for instance, I was just thinking about, for example, 2017, there was one story in the labor market, 2018, another one, 2019, something about 2018, but has a little bit difference. And then you know what happened after that. And so changes are constantly, and please let us, you know, share experiences on how to adapt. Yeah. What are we doing? I would say that first of all, we are in daily contact with our candidates and with our employers, and actually we are listening to them. We are listening their problems. We encourage them to the feedback, and yes, there is a shortage of talents on the market. We are all aware of it, and that's why we are testing and implementing new services. The mostly ones that are actually improving the response of the candidates, especially passive ones. As we see, there is a majority of the candidates on the market are actually passive ones. And we actually, I think, did the great change. That is that we transformed by time from a simple job board to the solution center for the labor market. And we are actually, that is our way to adapt to the changes. So we are actually giving solutions through the synergy of our 4 websites and over 40 services in the fields of recruitment, selection, and we provide also a wide range of services in the domain of employer branding. So that is the first thing, this transformation. So listening to the market, becoming aware that we have to become a solution center, and then implementing it. The other one is this employer branding services, and all story about that. It is very important, and the company must spread awareness of themselves as employers, and that was what Orshi mentioned. So it has to be transparent, honest, but there is a need to stand out from all other employers in some good ways, in some of your strengths, and that is what we can provide to the market. And the third one, I would say, I don't know which is more popular to me, but this one is one of my favorites. Actually, is this what we're doing here today? So we are actually educating the people. First, we are listening to the trends in the industry. We are cooperating with our partners, with Network, with BCG, and the others, and we are listening about trends not only in Serbia, but from the abroad. And then we want to educate and inform employers about it so they can actually respond to these changes on time. And for example, this year we will have, I think, over 100 events that will actually be in some kind of sharing practices, sharing information, and sharing knowledge like here today. So I would say that will be it. If you want me to talk more, it's not a problem.
It sounds like we're busy.
Yeah.
It's one way to do that, and I can witness, I can say it's really true. We take care of both sides when doing this. If there's one thing that you have, all three of you have witnessed over the past, the course of 5, 10, 20 years, being the candidate and the freshly employed youngster to someone who is in charge of labor market in their own ways, what would you say is the biggest change, the biggest switch in candidates' behavior from let's say 5, 10 years, 15 years ago and today? And again, I assume we were all thinking this, probably like 2 or 3 same things, so it's okay if we just agree with Australia. But yeah, I think let's just compare the 2 decades, let's call them that way. Does anyone have anything that just popped on their minds that would like to share?
One thing that stood out for me is this self-confidence. I'm not that old. I still consider myself kind of an earlier generation. Anytime, even when I got a job offer, I always feel like, oh, I need to accept it. Yeah, I should be happy about it. This is the salary. Yes, just take it. But what our data shows is 70% of people actually feel they can negotiate, and also a lot of them expect to negotiate. And while I personally still would feel so uncomfortable, even though this is the topic I'm researching, and I know that I can negotiate. I think this is something that changed a little bit with newer generations. And I think also maybe the pandemic somehow unlocked something in people's heads, where basically they went through a situation where, they were laid off, they found another job, they work differently. I think it a bit recalibrated, how important work is versus how important am I. And I think it's kind of this increased confidence to ask questions, to negotiate, to want different conditions, to know that I don't just have to take whatever is offered. I think even that for me is different, for sure different than 15 years ago when I started looking for a job. So I'm quite impressed by that.
Brian, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just thinking I would have a lot of replicas, but it would take a full hour to everything that Jelena and Orsi were talking about, and popping so much ideas in my head. But so you mentioned it a few times, we mentioned it all together, that there are some things that we are all kind of aware and make sounds like common sense, but we are not applying them. Or she just gave the good example. We are in this industry and we know that we can negotiate, but we still don't do that. Or we are in this industry and when we are posting a job ad for our company, we don't put salary in, or we don't have a good job description. So yes, that's something that we all need to maybe take a pause and read these reports like this, and step back and redo our processes and our stuff. That's just something that popped my mind while you were talking, and comparing changes on the labor market. As Orsi said, I'm not that old and I'm not that long in the industry, but yes, I would also say that we had that phrase in Balkan, and I believe it's the same everywhere. It's always easy to find a worker, and it was something like 10, 15, 20 years ago. Companies always had that approach. It's easy to find someone. If you don't want to do it, there is always someone who will do it for you. And that's change. Maybe that's not answering your question completely, Sidora, because it's not on the employees side, but kind of, yeah, it is, because people are aware that things are changed and they are not so that easily replaceable as they were before, and they are aware of it. And as our report says, some of them are sexy and they know it, and the rest of them so those people, and they try to replicate their behavior and to either to negotiate, either to stick for themselves, stand for themselves in the company they are working with, and stuff like that.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Jelena, do you want to add something?
How can I add something right now? So I can add that I am old and I am in the industry for so long, because the two of them aren't. But definitely the same. So what was Boyan saying? There is a saying, if you don't want to work, there is someone who will. So yeah, we say it like that, and we said it like that years before. But the shift in the mindset, actually, that is the key word for me in the behavior of the candidates. They are really self-aware. And results for Serbia shows that 64 of respondents evaluate the negotiation power in the labor market positively. That makes that they're well aware of how actually their position on the market is. And I think that they feel that they have more power than employers right now in the terms of negotiation. So the other question is, like Boyan said, are they using it? But they are really aware that they have it. So I will say definitely the shift in the mindset of the candidates because of the every factor that we mentioned tonight, but that is the biggest change for me. And I think actually it is a good change. Yeah.
Yep. Especially for the upcoming generations.
Yeah.
My 2 cents to just add on to what you already said is that, and like numbers based, is that not no one, but less and less people stay within a company longer than like 3, 4, or 5 years, whereas that would have been unimaginable 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, just look at like probably most of our parents, they worked at the same company for their entire lifetime. So yeah, that could be one. Okay, let me just go and quickly check the questions. Okay, so yeah, we had a question about the future in IT recruitment. I think we covered that one. Does anyone, so we have a question about onboarding in remote era. Does anyone have any thoughts about onboarding in remote era coming from a company? How can they make that successful and appealing to candidates, since it's something that's quite new, not as much for the past couple of years, but still some companies struggle with that. Any advice?
Can maybe share some experience from BCG, our own company, where the young consultants who come into BCG, traditionally they would learn by being in the same room and asking you questions. What did you do in Excel? Why did you do this PowerPoint template? Asking you questions about how this industry works. We are very kind of apprenticeship based, that you work together. That's how the new ones learn. And that was really torpedoed by the working remotely. And what we started doing is we tried to kind of engineer some of the social interactions that would need to happen. So what it means, in an average office environment, you would have some random discussions by the coffee machine, or you would have some lunches together. So we started then putting these in the calendars, like virtual coffees, virtual lunches. And then also we started emulating the environment of working together. Maybe this is the weirdest thing, but previously you would have 4 people who are in the same team sitting in the same room, working and sometimes asking questions. So what we did is then actually we got those 4 people in a Zoom call. The Zoom call was ongoing, but they were not always talking. They were just working, but the Zoom call was open. So at any point when you got stuck or you wanted something, you could ask a question. So essentially they were sitting in the same room working, which I think feels a little bit weird use of Zoom, but in the end, the Zoom was just the equivalent of the physical space they would have sat in. So I think it took a little bit of calibrating, of thinking through some of those natural behaviors that you don't need to think about, and actually thinking about them and finding the online equivalent. I mean, this being said, it's still not that great, of course, to just talk to the Zoom versus talking to a person, but I think some of these helped a bit. We also did, you know, in an office environment, you would just run into random people and talk to them, even if you don't have to do anything with them. So we did kind of like a lottery style of speed dating where, you know, people who would not talk to each other were paired and then they kind of had to have a virtual coffee. I think some of this can work, some of this can feel a little forced. So one needs to experiment what people actually feel like doing. But it was, I mean, still, it was not so ideal. Now, of course, we don't have such a strict lockdown. So, you know, for virtual onboarding, for example, you could also hire a person that's based in Romania, but will work for your company in Hungary. We would still recommend to at least find a couple of key points where that person is brought in physically. And I think also, for example, in IT or software development, you know, there's a lot of work that people can very happily do from home and they don't need to talk to anybody. But we did actually a specific survey, and even software developers would want to come together like a day a week where they agree who does what, they design the product, they discuss what's happening, and then they are happy to go home. So I think now there is not a full lockdown, one can focus on those very meaningful physical interactions. And we studied actually a couple of companies who worked in this fully remote way even before the pandemic. So there are some startups who are calling themselves the virtual nomads, where they have everybody sits in a different country and they have 70 different countries employed. And even them, they do bring people physically together a couple of times a year for kind of a big conference or an event. So then they don't really have a headquarters, but then that money they actually pump into having a couple of large global meetings. And also when they onboard someone, then they also invest a lot in getting that person fly around and meeting in person with people at the beginning, and then they are mostly remote.
Okay, it's one way to do it. I like this ongoing Zoom idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea, yeah.
The only problem is if you forget about it and you start doing other stuff.
Okay, yeah. You should be very careful, right? Bonnie, you wanted to share something as well?
Yes. I would say that we as company, we tried almost everything Orshi explained, mentioned, except this ongoing Zoom, but virtual coffee, virtual brunch, virtual whatever. But I would just, of course, second everything that Orshi mentioned, and I would just add one more thing that might be also close to the answer to the question. We as the network, since we work with partners all over the world, and you can imagine in 60 partners, there is constant fluctuation in the several positions, and we have people working in sales, CS, marketing, finance, whatever. And what we did, because we consider that as onboarding. We as the network, we are a really small team. We don't hire much, but all partners and all people starting working and changing for the power partners are kind of onboarding for us. So what we do, we developed the Network Academy. That's online platform where all rules, procedures, and everything, what we do, how we do it, why we do it, everything is there. So what we do when every time there is a new employee in any of our partners, we set up an account at the Network Academy and give them credentials, and so they can go there and finish the courses. Of course, there are separate paths for sales, CS people, and there are separate different levels of course, from beginner to master. And when the person goes through all those courses, that person is fully, let's say, educated and prepared for work with the network. So I believe that something could be replicated in all companies. And of course, we have a first introduction call with everyone virtually, because we don't travel to Asia or UK or US for every new employee. We start with virtual onboarding and quick intro about the company and the rules, and then direct them to academy.
We have internal competition regarding Network Academy, just for you to know. So who gets the more points? Yeah. I'm very much fan of it. It's great, really.
Cool. Who's winning? Who is winning right now?
I have the name, actually. I will tell you. Some of I don't know how to say maniac, but you know.
A person with the same name.
Yeah, right. The person with the
same
name, yeah. Is the absolute winner. Yeah.
There's only a few minutes left. Let's be respectful towards our audience. If it's okay with you, if there's one thing, one recommendation for companies listening to, a lot of people have stayed throughout the entire webinar, which is really great, and thanks to everyone who did so. So if there's a 1 minute, a sentence or something that you would like to dedicate to companies who are, finding themselves in any kind of struggles that we mentioned today, what would it be? Orshia, you can go first.
This time you will not steal it.
Maybe just one more, one more thing from everything mentioned. I think sometimes it's not only talent acquisition, it's all kind of questions with talent. I think it's very easy to fall back to the biases we have in our heads. Like, we can only recruit from this university, or we need to get the guy who's similar to me as a hiring manager. And I think maybe one thing that would help also to widen the talent pool is to really check what are my prejudices, what are my biases, and maybe talent could be someone else, could be somewhere else than what I have in mind. And that could help also to fill some of the gaps that maybe you're struggling with.
So stay open-minded.
Right?
Okay, I like that one. Jelena, ladies first, but
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I would say that we should integrate top management into changes in the mindset and culture of the company that are in the line with the changes we talked about today. So I think it is very much important that on the one hand, we realize the changes are happening, and then that all the companies starting from the top management know it and initiate it and support it. So that would be one. So we cannot do it as individuals. So maybe today I learned something from you and I want to change the world and Infostud and everything, but I cannot do it alone. And I think that we must work as a team. And first of all, it comes from the top management to create the mission, the vision, the strategy of the company, which is available to changes and which can attract and recruit top talents. That will be the first. And the second one, I know that in the future months, all of us are going to think how to optimize costs and how to actually boost our results. But please do not forget all the things we were mentioning today, and please think about people too, because you will get your results. You will get the better results to your people. So that will be two things.
And Violet, cherry on top.
Yeah, I would say that we mentioned a lot of terms, and so we gave a lot of suggestions through this webinar, and for those who listen carefully, they could pick up a lot of advices. And I will just for the end give one from my perspective, from the network perspective, that cast your net as wide as possible. You have Infostud, our partner there, and they are partnering with all our partners in 140 countries. So be open for recruitment abroad, because we know that you have shortage in not only in Serbia, but in all countries, shortage of candidates is there. So you have to be open to hire abroad, bring people to your country or work with them remotely. And you can do that all through the easily with through the job boards, through Infostud. Since you are all here watching Infostud webinar, I assume that you work with them, and that could be just another step that you can do. Not post your listing only in the Serbia or wherever country you're coming from. You post your listing worldwide.
Thank you for this kind of wrapping up this way. Hopefully people in the audience today heard a lot of useful information, recommendations they might implement maybe tomorrow, maybe in the years coming. On behalf of Infostud, I want to thank everyone in the audience for being here today. I want all of us to be the first ones to wish Jelena happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you very much. This is
And from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of Infostud, thank you, Oršalja, Bojan, and Jelena, for being with us here today and for sharing this. Let's make this, you know, a tradition. Let's keep everyone in touch. Feel free to, people in the audience, feel free to reach out if we have not answered anything something that you might have, you know, anything to talk about. Reach out. Infostud as well as the network and Boston Consulting Group are here for you. So yeah, let's make this year the best way possible, and next year hoping to see some trends as well and use them in our cultures and strategies as well. So thank you, and have the rest of the day as nice as possible.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Isidora. Thank you all for having us.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.